Elon Musk offered a teenager $5,000 to delete a Twitter tracking account, basically a Twitter account that is tracking his private jet. Basically, it's kind of an odd situation, right? Because, like, just take for example that you were tech savvy enough to be able to track a billionaire in terms of where his whereabouts are whenever he goes and flies and all that kind of stuff, right? So Tesla founder Elon Musk offered to pay a tech-savvy teenager $5,000 to shut down an account that kept tabs on his private jet due to concerns about his personal safety. And here's the thing, right? Like, the personal safety aspect of this is actually a pretty serious thing, right? Because you got to think about it. When you are basically the richest person in the world publicly, right? There's going to be a lot of crazy people that probably want to get rid of you. There's probably a lot of people that want to get a hold of you. There's probably a lot of people that maybe just want to be a dick to you, right? Like, there's like a lot of issues that could come around because you got to think about it. Not only is he basically the richest human being, he is also one of the most popular human beings. He's definitely the most popular rich guy, right? Like, his audience base is massive. And the thing is, even if it's just 0.1% of his audience, that is crazy. That's a lot of people, right? So that's a lot of people that might end up doing a lot of harm to him or people that he cares about. So it's like a really sticky situation. Like, a lot of people don't really take it seriously because, like, oh, this guy's in the public light, he's super rich, he could probably, afford to like protect himself, all that kind of stuff, right? He might be able to protect himself, but here's the thing: if everyone basically knows where he's going to go, that could kind of be an issue because people could just prepare. People could just make plans and do something nutty to him. So the billionaire reached out to the 19-year-old college student Jack Sweeney last November to express concern about a Twitter account he runs called @ElonJet, which provides regular updates on flights of well-known figures by using publicly available data, according to direct messages reviewed by the Post and first reported by Protocol. Can you take this down? It is a security risk, Musk wrote to him in a direct message on Twitter dated November 30th. The pair exchanged several more messages, with Musk pressing for details on how Sweeney set up the bots and what he earned by operating them. Eventually, Musk offered $5,000 to delete the accounts. I don't love the idea of being shot by a nutcase, Musk said. Which I would have to agree, right? Because regardless of how rich you are and all that kind of stuff, right? This is a pretty big issue. Now, Sweeney counter offered at $50,000, telling Musk the money would be great support in college and would possibly allow me to get a car, maybe even a Model 3, according to Protocol. Which, to me, right, it's kind of like a weird situation, right? Because it's like, okay, you're tracking, a billionaire, right? And you're like requesting, this is almost on par to being practically blackmail, right? Now, this isn't really blackmail because they're just using like publicly, like he's using public information, right? But at the same time, right, you're like, hey, I'll delete this information on you if you give me $50,000. It's like, regardless of how much money someone has, that's kind of like eel, like EW, eel, right? It's like, you're going down that route. I mean, there's nothing wrong with like asking for it, right? I mean, hell, the guy's literally the richest guy ever, but still is kind of like a weird situation. Musk said that he would consider the offer, but later said it didn't feel right to pay to shut down the account. Eventually, he stopped responding. So Tesla representatives did not immediately respond to requests for comment, and Tesla reportedly dissolved its PR team last year. So when reached for comment, Sweeney said it was awesome but kind of scary to receive a DM for Musk. He added that he would like to work for one of Musk's companies in the future. The thing is, probably because of the situation, he probably won't work for Tesla or for one of Elon Musk's companies in the future if Musk basically knew about it, right? Because you got to think about it, right? If a billionaire basically goes and directly contacts you and basically says hey, can you take this down? Hey, I'm even willing to give you some money, right? Can you take this down? But you counter offer him 10x what he was willing to give you originally, right? Not double, 10x, right? That's probably going to leave a sour taste in Musk's mouth. Basically, this kid basically just tried to do me wrong in a way, while also invading my privacy, while also just doing this kind of weird stuff. Would I really knowingly let him into one of my companies? Because maybe he's going to get creepier, right? Maybe he's going to pry even into more of my stuff. Who knows? So that's something that Musk might think about as well. So Musk is one of the world's most recognizable business leaders. He's also one of the world's richest people with a personal net worth of more than $240 billion as of Thursday, according to Forbes, right? But the thing is, a lot of people don't really understand the whole concept of net worth. Because in reality, 99% of this worth is in Tesla stock, which can be worthless tomorrow, right? Now, he also sold a whole bunch of Tesla stock and had to pay a crap ton of taxes. I think he had to pay I think $11 billion in taxes or something like that. So he's also the biggest taxpayer in the world. But another way to really think about this is yes, on paper, he is literally the richest person in the world. But at the same time, that doesn't mean he necessarily has access to the $240 billion. Because you got to think about it. If him, the CEO of Tesla, were to liquidate all of his stock, there's no way it would actually be one, he would not be able to sell all of it all at once, right? Because he has to go through the SEC. Two, that would crash the price of that stock heavily, right? If he basically said oh, I'm going to sell every single share that I have on this date, before it even reaches that day, it's going to be half, a quarter of that, maybe a tenth of that price. It's going to be insane. It probably wouldn't be the worst crashes of a stock in the shortest amount of time. So the Tesla founder recently expressed concern about accounts tracking his travel. So earlier this month, Musk addressed the issues on Twitter after one of his followers, a Tesla investor, apologized for sharing a post claiming the billionaire planned to travel to Berlin, Germany. And again, here's the thing, right? If this is even for the same thing in terms of presidents of countries and all that kind of stuff, right? It's weird that people are tracking individuals wherever they go, right? That's just creepy, right? For example, would you do this to your boss? Would you do this to a friend of yours? Would you do this to someone that you hate? Right? It's odd. Why are you tracking people where they are going? That is creepy. So while the reports about the timing of Musk's trip proved to be incorrect, the billionaire noted that accounts tracking his travel were becoming a security issue. And look, I would have to agree, right? Because the thing is, no one really knows what any of these billionaires or even presidents or all this kind of stuff, right? Or just people in a massive public light. end up dealing with in terms of like security. Like, let's use this example because there's examples of this on like a smaller scale, right? Influencers, right? YouTubers, people who are on Instagram that have big followings, all that kind of stuff, right? They have people that will literally break into their house to see them, okay? There are parents of kids who will break into people's houses or where they make their videos so that they can meet their kids, right? So that they could have their own kids end up meeting these influencers, right? Crazy stuff, right? There are people that will literally travel from one country to another to break into your property to go see you, right? For these influencers. And they're on a much smaller scale of importance than someone like, let's say, Elon Musk or like a president. So you really got to understand that, like, when he talks about like security issue, they're probably like legitimate real threats, right? These are probably things that are like, yeah, if this keeps going on, I'm probably going to have to hire the types of security that will literally take people out because that's how dangerous it's getting. Like, it's going to be insane. Because again, you got to think about it. How many people in like the underbelly would love to try to like kidnap literally the richest person in the world publicly, right? So that they could like milk him for all his money or steal all of his money or all this crazy nonsense, right? Like they would do crazy stuff. Or they would try to like kidnap his kids for money or something like that, or like threaten him or sabotage something. Because you got to think about it too. It doesn't just affect him. If people are tracking his whereabouts and they do something to him, that will crash the stock, meaning that there's people probably willing, like, the way to look at it, right? For anyone that like has ever played like Grand Theft Auto, right? There were like missions in like Grand Theft Auto where if you took out like the head of the CEO of a massive publicly traded company, right? But you shorted it, like shorted that stock right beforehand, guess what? Stock crashes, you make massive amounts of money, and then no one's the wiser, right? And there's probably criminal organizations that would be willing to do something to that extent, or at the very least, sabotage his plane, sabotage something, right? Where people might think something, right? And it ends up causing a massive crash of Tesla stock, right? Like they don't even necessarily have to actually do something to him, but if they know his whereabouts, they could probably fake something and cause his stock to crash, costing massive amounts of investors to lose a lot of money, cause a lot of harm in the stock market in general, like in terms of like economy and all that kind of stuff, right? And just have like a lot of like mayhem, right, in general, while also pocketing probably millions, if not billions of dollars, right? Because who knows at what scale it might actually be. But it's just one way to like think about it. Also, another example of this is like a show called like Leverage. That was like a old show where like basically these super intelligent criminals who had like a good side to them, kind of funny, but like basically they were able to short a stock and crash that stock and make millions of dollars, right? It's like a 5-man team or something like that. It was a good show, but it's just something to really think about because when someone who is the head of a publicly traded company is facing security issues and increasing security issues because of accounts like this, it could get really bad. Like, not just for him, right? It could get really bad for all of his companies, all the stock shareholders, right? It could get bad for everyone involved. It could be bad for the electric car industry as well, and the progress in it is like the AI industry, all this sort of stuff. Right? There's so many negative impacts that could end up happening due to him having this security issue that people are just not even thinking about.